Hey everybody, welcome to today's video. Hope you're doing great. Today we're going to be talking about buyer's remorse, or maybe we ought to call it buyer's worry. When they put down a deposit on an RV and then they go home and they really start thinking, what am I getting into? It happens all the time, all the time. And in fact, I think that a little bit of that worry is maybe a good thing, but all too often, people who are just shoppers are easily converted into buyers by some pushy salesperson who knows just how to push the right buttons. And that's sort of the subject of today's video with RV lemon lawyer Ron Burdge. He is so smart when it comes to all things to do with RVs and the law. Now, before we begin, I want to remind you that I enjoy trying to help people make the right decisions about where to buy and who to buy from. I do. It gives me, what do they say? Great joy. It does. It gives me great joy to connect people with some of America's most trusted RV dealers and to know that their RV ownership experience has started on solid footing. But I also enjoy shining the light of truth on good and bad RV dealers and manufacturers that for one reason or another simply fail at doing the right thing. That said, if you're in a bad situation with your RV manufacturer, maybe with your dealer, and you would like my perspective, and at least give you a little bit of advice, perspective, if you will, like I said, give you some things to consider before you throw in the towel, and certainly before you hire a lawyer, I would like to help, and I'll do it at no charge. Seriously. Either shoot the QR code you see on the screen or click the word more down below in the description to a resources page. It's a link to a resources page I put together where you'll be able to start the process of me trying to help you. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not, but I've gotten a million miles on me and I might be able to steer you in the right direction. But speaking of lawyers, let's get into today's video with my friend Ron Burdge. I want to give you a scenario of somebody that contacted me recently.
Okay.
She sounds young. I've talked to her for probably 30, 45 minutes. She contacted me, seen the video. She sent me an email. Short story is she first RV ever. She's going to live in it full time. She bought it from a dealer that I know has got issues with other people, but she bought it in 2021. So it was a COVID camper. It's used. It's a motorhome for $40,000. And she said, it's beautiful. And they've inspected it, they meaning the dealership. And they've said that everything looks good. And she really wants it bad. So she promised to give them a $10,000 down payment. And they had her sign documents. And after she wrote the $10,000 or the promise to put a $10,000 down payment down, that's when she contacted me. She goes, I'm scared. I don't know what to do. I said, well, I don't want you scared, but I do want you cautious. And I asked her all about it. She told me, and I mean, I did everything I could except say, no, I pretty much said that. She just didn't want to hear it. She was afraid that they're going to come after her for the $10,000 if she doesn't complete the purchase. And when somebody commits to buying, I'm going to give you 10 grand next Wednesday. What if I change my mind between that now and when I'm supposed to bring the 10,000 to them or the down payment, whatever I promised?
Well, if all you did was promise and you never signed anything, it's totally unenforceable. If
Yeah,
it
but
isn't in writing, generally every state has a specific law that says that you can make a contract, but unless the contract is either written down or involves an amount of money of less than a certain number, usually $5,000, sometimes as little as $500, unless it involves at least that much, it's not enforceable if it isn't written down. So if you didn't sign a contract, but you told them, I'll be back and I'm going to give you $10,000 down on this, you don't have to go back. You don't have to give them 10,000, and they can threaten all day long, but they can't legally do anything about it. Now, the other part of it is, however, usually they'll say, okay, you give us $10,000 down, but give us $500 deposit right now, something to get you. And the reason is because they want some kind of money commitment. And then you give them that and you promise them you're going to bring another 8,000 or 9,000 or 9,500 or whatever it is next Wednesday or whatever, okay? It still gets down to, do you have a written contract for the purchase of the RV? If all you've got is a deposit receipt, you don't got anything. So they can't obligate you to go any farther than that in most states. So you really need to have a written contract to be bound by whatever it is you're saying. But bear in mind, that also means you need a written contract signed by the dealer for you to bind them to anything.
Okay, let me ask you this. Is it a good idea for me to, as a cautious buyer, to put down as little of a deposit as possible if I can buy some time, a week maybe, or maybe a couple of weeks, to literally sleep on it, think on it, reflect on it, if I'm willing to walk away from the deposit? So if I put, let's say $100,000, whatever it is, and they say, well, you need to put down at least $1,000 deposit. Okay, here's my $1,000, and I promise I'm going to give you the other 99,000. But I decide between the deposit payment and the pickup date that I am not in, I don't want this thing. Is the most I'm out that $1,000, or can they sue me and force me to give them the other 99 to say, hey, it's your deal, you were supposed to do it?
If you signed a purchase agreement to buy it, a buyer's order or whatever they might want to call it on their form. But if you agreed to buy it, you signed a piece of paper, and they signed a piece of paper saying they were agreeing to sell it and everything, you're going to end up being locked in on it in one way or another. Now, then the question becomes, will they really chase you over it? And a lot of dealers will threaten to and may even actually do it. And every once in a while, I'll see one of those in the court someplace. But most dealers will take the money if they have a good shot at selling it somewhere else and go. Now, at other times, what they'll do is they'll tell you, you got to pay us, you got to pay us, and you argue and you don't want to do it and whatever. And then they say, well, you're lucky. We sold it. But we lost $3,000 on it because we had to sell it for less than what you were going to buy. So now you owe us $3,000 or whatever it might be. And then you'll, if you have your wits about you, what you need to do is say, well, show me the sales contract where you sold it to somebody so I can see that you actually did lose $3,000 on it. They usually won't want to do that. But if they do, you can't be sure it's real anyway. So you need to call the person who they say bought it. And by the way, in most states, you can actually trace and find who bought the vehicle, either your trade in or the one you were going to buy and didn't buy and somebody else bought, and now the dealer wants you to pay more or whatever. It isn't easy, but it can be done. And a lawyer can almost always do it, frankly. But the bottom line of it is, if they say, well, first of all, you signed a sales contract, you said you were paying $8,000, you were going to buy the rest for another $95,000. Now we're stuck with this RV. Well, that's sort of true and sort of not. Legally, the dealer is obligated to make an attempt to do what they call minimize their loss. Okay, in other words, they can't just simply put the RV out back and ignore it and sue you for the full purchase price. They have to make a good faith effort to try to sell it to keep their loss from being as much as it otherwise would be. If they don't do that, then you got an argument. But now we're getting into all this lawyer argument stuff, and most people won't go there. Most of the time, the dealer knows they can bully them into getting something out of them that they can live with.
I'll promise you this. You may tell me, hey, Wingman, don't do that. But if somebody was in that box and if that woman, if she's probably already bought the motorhome, she said she really wanted it bad. And I'm like, please be a good one. But would you contact me? Let me know how things go. But if somebody said, I'm willing to walk away from my deposit that I made, but I'm not going to buy it, and they say they're going to sue me, I would volunteer my channel to say, really? Tell me the story. And I would contact the dealer and say, hey, Mr. Dealer, why don't you explain to me, why won't you do this? What are you doing to sell the RV? And most of those dealers, I think those dealers, when we shine the light of truth, and I've said for forever, silence is the best defense that these sleazy dealers have. They make you sign NDAs. They kick the can down the road. They just wear you out so you don't say anything to anybody. And that silence is why this continues to go. And the Burdge and Wells Law Office does so well, because you guys, you got a lot of unhappy people. That silence is something. We need to get people to speak up, even though it's painful.
Well, we only hear about the unhappy people, and there are a lot of happy campers out there who get a fair deal and deal with the dealer who's going to treat them honest and all the rest of that, and they end up happy. But there are a lot of times out there, and you're right. The law office has been very busy for, gosh, 40 going on 50 years now. And we've been that busy doing this kind of work because there's always a dealer out there willing to rip somebody off. And if people aren't really aware of what's happening to them, they'll get ripped. Sooner or later, they'll get ripped.
Well, I hope you found today's conversation to be helpful and that you can benefit from all my conversations with Ron. He has got almost a half century of real world experience with RVs and the law. Almost a half century. And sadly, these kind of situations, like we were just talking about, where people get cold feet and they think about backing out of their purchase, are not all that uncommon. It is easy to get all excited and end up over your skis, so to speak, and in big trouble. Now, buying an RV, it should be fun. It should be. The process should be fun. Not giddy, childish kind of fun, but enjoyable, stress-free. And that's what it's like at America's most trusted RV dealers. No one, I mean no one, will work harder before, during, and after the sale to provide a fantastic ownership experience. No one. And by the way, if you didn't know, I keep my finger on the pulse, so to speak, of what's happening at these dealers. I do. And I do it by talking with their customers. I hear about their experiences firsthand. And it makes me proud. It does. It makes me proud to see so many ecstatic people that are crazy about their RV dealer. You can listen to some of those customer experiences through my resources page. Access it by shooting the code you see on the screen, or you can find a link in the description down below. I think that you will be impressed if you listen. I really do. And if you have a scenario that you'd like to run past Ron Burdge or Beth Wells, the general partner of the law firm, you'll find a link to them also on that resources page. That's it for today's video. Let me hear from you. Y'all be safe, have fun, play nice, and don't leave your good manners at home. See you soon.